I'm Amanda, and this is Not Your Granny's Quilt Show. Hey, everybody, welcome to today's episode. I am very, very excited for this episode. I know I say I'm excited for every episode because I truly am, but this one just feels so special. I have two guests today. That's right, you get two for the price of one, which is free. I have Laura Raquel Duran. I hope I said that nicely in Spanish, and Lina Owen of Quilting with Latinas. They have authored a book together that brings Spanish into learning to quilt. So their book is called Learn-to-Quilt, Bilingual Guide Book. And the instructions of learning to quilt and making patterns that are in the book are in both English and in Spanish. And there's some history of their culture. And so Lina was born and raised in Colombia and came to the United States when she was 19, almost 19. And Laura has lived in San Diego for the majority of her life, but came by way of Mexico. So she also, they brought their brains together, brought their hearts and their cultures together, and really wanted to present the quilting community with something that is a piece of them, not just a translated quilting pattern, right? So they are also working with companies to translate patterns into Spanish. So right now they've got the Moda blockheads and the Riley Blake block 2025 block challenge that they are working on and doing tutorials in Spanish. They're going to be working with the Bernina We All Sew, having Spanish patterns there. Art Gallery is going to be partnering with them. So be on the lookout for these two. They are so incredible. And it was just lovely to get to talk to them and hear how they work together and how they really just had the same vision and feel like they can both bring their strengths to the table and just really execute this mission of bringing even more quilters into the fold by allowing Spanish speakers access to patterns that maybe seemed a little daunting or scary before. But now they don't have to fret because Laura and Lina are giving us something to remediate that and to help bring more people in. So I'm excited for you to hear our conversation, to hear all about their stories of how they individually got into quilting and then how they came together to create this incredible book and their services of translating quilting patterns into Spanish. So let's get into it. Hi, Lina. Hi, Laura. How are you?
We're doing good. How are you?
I'm
Hi.
good. Hi. Thank you so much for being here. I am so excited to talk to you guys. So, Lena, you reached out to me, and I had no idea that you guys have created a book of learning to quilt. It's bilingual, it's Spanish and English. So that's so exciting. And we will talk about that. But I always ask my guests because I just always am so curious of how everybody got into quilting. So maybe Lena, we can start with you and you can tell us how you got into quilting in the first place.
Of course, yes. So everybody knows my name is Lina Owen, and I am located in Milton, Wisconsin. And I always been creative, and that's kind of since a little girl. But I always wanted to learn how to use a sewing machine, and um, you don't see it in the screen, but I'm very short. I'm super tiny. And my mom was always terrified that I was going to hurt myself.
Mm,
So I went to Catholic school, and then I learned to do a lot of like hand stitching. And so I did a lot of cross stitch work growing up, and I love to paint, draw, and do all of the kind of crafts. I was always very crafty. But then I had a choice of like when you go and you become a teenager, like what are you gonna study? And so I did wanted to go for graphic design, but my mom felt a little bit more strongly about it, and she was like, I don't know if that's the right way. And they were entrepreneurs; they're on their own business. So I studied international business. That's my trade. Um, and then just kind of like as life gets busy, I am from Colombia, was born and raised. I moved to the States at the age of almost 19, like literally a month before my 19th birthday.
Oh,
With
wow.
my parents, we landed in Florida, as many, especially as many Colombians do.
Mhm.
Um, and I lived in Florida for about 3 years. I studied business administration in Indian River State College. I'm sure that Floridians know where that is. Um, and um, and then I met the father of my son, and then that was during the recession and the crisis of '08 and '09. And we met through work. He worked in an RV dealership, and then that closed down, and then we moved to Wisconsin. And
Okay.
so then I got here. And unfortunately, him and I got divorced when my son was little, very, very small. And then years later, I remarried, and my mother-in-law, and that's the reason why I got here.
Mhm.
That's because my mother-in-law, she is an avid quilter, and she is the one that got me into quilting. So all the credit always goes to her, even in the book. Laura and I have our dedication in the book, and obviously, without her, I wouldn't be where I am. And without the pandemic, I wouldn't be where I am, right?
Mhm.
So even though it was a very hard time, so you get busy. I mean, I worked for many years as an international business professional in a multinational company, and I live in a little town in Wisconsin, which is about an hour away from the capital where the offices were. So I had like a 2 hour commute every day. So my time was very limited with small children. So I didn't have a lot of time. Then
Mhm.
pandemic hit, everybody's at home, everybody's working remotely. And then I had a lot of time in my hands and
Yeah.
everybody. So few years ago, I did mention to my mother-in-law that I did wanted to learn how to use a sewing machine. So
Mhm.
she that year she did gifted me for Christmas as very small baby lock Anna. I still
Mhm.
have it. I don't think I will never get rid of it. Uh, and so and she got me all of the things. At that point I didn't know that those were like very high quality tools.
Mm.
She didn't get me the traditional Joanne things that you get. No, she got me the Alpha rotary cutter, the nice Alpha cutting mat as well, and like very nice like the Karen, Karen I can never remember her last name. The
Mm.
scissors lady,
Mm, mhm. Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
like all the things, like I had all the things, that I was like, okay, what am I going to do with this? I didn't know at that point. But
Yeah.
obviously, she spent a pretty penny equipping me with all the things that I could ever need. Um, she thought that was her sewing essentials, but I think in her mind there was more like those were quilting essentials, not so much of like straight up sewing. And so then I said, we all need masks. And I was like, I have this sewing machine here. Like, let's make masks. And then once I got comfortable with the sewing machine,
Mhm.
I was like, I think I can see if I like quilting. Um, and I just created and she says that she created a monster, and yeah, that has taken over my life. And so she's like, for heaven's sake, this is not a machine for quilting. I'm like, please just teach me, and if I like it, I'll buy a better machine, right? Like,
Mhm.
I just need to get started. I don't want to stop, that I have to get the nice one. And so she got me the machine, and like she taught me how to do it, and then I just started, and then I was like, my husband's like, honey, I do think I'm gonna need a bigger machine, right? And then my upgrade was a Baby Lock Soprano,
Mm.
which was a very decent, I would say a very nice mid-range sewing machine.
Yeah.
Um, and then I just started making quilts and quilts and quilts. Um, and there was like a really good sale, and then I upgraded to a baby lock crescendo, which was
Mm.
amazing. And then it had the automatic start and stop, and so my daughter started to sew on it as well, and she was like maybe 3 at that point. She was
Oh my
really
gosh.
little.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 or 4. And that's how it all grew. In 2022, um, it kind of like the next year I started thinking like, I love this. This is such an amazing community. Like it just opened their arms to me, and I was like, wow. As an immigrant, you always have like that void, and I always talk about how it just kind of feels that void that I always felt for such a very long time
Hmm.
of just uprooting everything of your life and just coming into a completely different country, and you lose your best, and it's not that you lose them, but you don't have that close contact with your best friends. Like if
Right.
I go back to Colombia and I have uh it's like when you have those real good friends, like time doesn't, it's not in the equation. You
Yeah.
don't need it's just like that very unconditional relationship, which is
Yeah.
beautiful, and I'm very lucky to have that. um and but you always miss that constant interaction with family and friends, and your culture. And so coming into the quilting community has been amazing. I mean, I have met the most wonderful people. uh,
Hmm.
like Laura is one of the greatest examples, and I'm so blessed to have met her. And it was just, and so I started to question like, why we don't have content in Spanish. Like this is such a wonderful community.
Hmm.
And I don't think it's fair for like I think like our community or Spanish speaking community to be missing out on this wonderful bond that we can all use, especially coming out of the pandemic and how traumatic in many different ways it was for everybody, right? And the constant change, the uncertainty, all of the different feelings. So many people lost loved ones. It was just a very difficult time all across the world. It wasn't just located in a single place.
Right.
The entire humanity had to readjust and to rethink
Hmm.
that. So I always say that COVID gifted me quilting, as
Hmm.
many other people have, and I know I'm not the only one, but
Yeah.
I just felt such a healing process through being able to, it like got me through those difficult times where I didn't really feel those challenges that other people were facing,
Hmm.
because quilting became my coping mechanism, right?
Hmm.
Of going through all of those feelings and meeting all these kind people, so I didn't feel alone. At the contrary, I felt that my squad was growing, instead of just kind of reducing. Uh,
Right.
and so it was such a wonderful thing. So when that sparked, I was like, well, with my business background, I was like, how can I make this some sort of income and like make it be my career?
Hmm.
So I started digging, and I was like, and I want to be able to bring this to my Spanish community.
Yeah.
And I took how to write quill pattern course by Elizabeth Chappell. Laura, it's funny because Laura also took that class. We took them in different years. She took them like on the first one. She was like, she's the OG of the
Hmm.
quill pattern writing course. I took it, I want to say 2 years later. I took it in the fall of 2022. And so, and that's where the beginning of Bluebell Design started.
Okay.
And then after I finished the the quill pattern writing course, I opened or I created the very first Spanish quilting podcast that was called
Mhm.
In Translation Discover Quilting. And this is where I met Laura. And
Okay.
so I recorded about a year's worth of episodes.
Hmm.
Um, and um and then I've been like wanting to rebrand it. I haven't started back up again. That's something that Laura and I want to do together.
Hmm.
But we really haven't really found the like the right time of like kicking it back up,
Yeah.
because I think this is something that we definitely need to continue to do as.
Yeah.
But once I interviewed Laura, like I had Baruch Casarate on the podcast, I had Carolina Oneto in the podcast, I had the owners of our gallery fabrics, Pat
Hmm.
and Walter Bravo. In the podcast, I had Vanessa Vargas from Crafty Gemini in the
Hmm.
podcast. And so, I mean, I'm talking about people that are recognizable in the industry that are part of our Latino community, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, Big Katie Plybon from Suspicious was also in my podcast. Orlando from Quiltosaurus. I mean, I'm talking many, 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 and even people from outside the US as well
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
are in part of the industry. And so then after I finished my episode with Laura, we just kind of clicked. It
Hmm.
was like an instant uh chemistry, I wanna say. And it's beyond business partners. For us, it's more we're family. Right, Laura? I don't wanna speak
Yes.
for you, but for me, it's more
Laura's like,
like
no. No. Yeah. That's no, I love that. I love that. So,
And so then I told her, and we exchanged our phone numbers after
mhm.
the interview, and we just started testing and constantly testing. And then I told her, it's like, I got this crazy idea. Do you want to, do you wanna you want to co-wrote at the first bilingual quilting book? And she's like, are you serious? Yes, let's do it. She didn't even hesitate at 1 second. I'm like proposing this crazy bold idea where there
Yeah.
was no business plan. There's nothing. I mean, like it's literally, it has not been nothing. It just kind of grew out of
Hmm.
this dream that Laura and I had. And then we just kind of started talking, and at first, we were going to self-publish it, right, Laura? Because
Yes.
Laura and Laura actually, this is her second book that she publishes, but it's the first time working with actually a publisher because you were part of another book. What
Yes.
was?
And we self-published. And there was all beginner pattern writers. So we collaborated and published self-published a book, a quilting book with all brand new pattern writers
Um,
from Elizabeth's course that we met. And so yes, but it's funny when I hear Lina, her dreams were the same ones as mine. It's the very first thing I wanted was like, why isn't there Spanish content? Because I had a lot of family that wanted to quilt.
Hmm.
So that was my goal. I'm like, how can I figure out how to write Spanish patterns so that for me it was like, okay, let me get family and friends that really want to quilt and show them. And because they're not here, they're in Mexico. And so then like it wasn't easy where I could just sit down and teach them. So for me, it was like if I write patterns in Spanish, I can send it to them and then they can start and then we can talk about it. And so
Yeah.
when Lina proposed the book, it was like, wow, she's has the same idea of writing in Spanish because I couldn't find anything in Spanish. So, yeah.
so
Wow.
it literally started in we want to say May of 2024,
Okay.
something like that. Yeah. So it
Okay.
was this
Yes.
year. Yeah. And then it just I pitched the idea to Fox Chapel Publishing, which is the publisher that did our book, and
Mhm.
they agreed. And Laura and I could not believe it. And Quilting with Latinas was born because of the book.
Yeah,
And well, that's my story. That's
that's
a short
incredible.
story, but that's my story.
Yeah, no, it's great. Thank you so much for sharing all that. And it's so funny, like when you know, who you meet and the connections you make when you start to go down the path that is calling to your heart, right? Like you've wanted to learn to sew, you've wanted that for so long. And when you finally leaned into it, it's like, oh, look at all these things that are happening. So, well, Laura, how did you get into quilting?
Yeah. Well, I'm Laura Raquel Duran. I'm a native San Diegan. Um, Art has always been in my life since I can remember. I've always, family, we, all the cousins, we embroidered, we mended clothes, we sewed. It was, crocheted. It was part of our everyday when we got together. So all the textile was a big part of my life growing up. I always would see my aunts sew, and they sewed clothes for us. And so, not having too much money to be able to buy our own clothes, I would say, Aunt, can you, I would love this top. Absolutely, let me make it for you.
Mhm,
And they would take out the sewing machine, take my measurements, and make clothes. And so I started sewing when probably, I mean, 8 years old at a Bible camp through church. I learned my very first uh, sewing machine. I learned how to use it, and then my grandmother gifted me one of her sewing machines later. And so then I always made like doll clothes, all the basic little as a child.
yeah,
And then in high school, of course, I wanted to be like everybody else, where they had all the great clothes and everything. And, we couldn't buy them like all the time, like how, teenagers, we want to, always have the latest thing. So then
right.
I was like, okay, fabric is very inexpensive. And so then I would definitely go, and it's incredible, but I would buy between 50 cents and $1 for a yard of fabric. So it was incredible inexpensive when I was
Yeah.
growing up. And so then I would like, oh my gosh, I'm going to learn. And the 80s was really simple. Like I could make myself a tank top or a top and a long skirt with, and so I made a lot of my clothes during high school. And so,
Okay.
and then, um, I got married young and started a family, was working all the time, but I've always done some kind of art. I've always had to do either embroidery or something, painting or ceramics. I mean, I've done it all and I do it all.
Mhm,
And it's a big part of my life. And so, I used to watch Eleanor Burns and Alex Anderson, and they're
mhm,
on PBS. And I used
mhm,
to dream about learning how to quilt. But in our culture, that's quilting isn't part of, our culture of like, it's, not traditionally something we do. And so, but I used to love just to see the beautiful fabrics and everything. And because in Mexico, we do a lot of our clothes with cotton. So
mhm,
then I knew the look and I loved it. I didn't see anything like color wise. I never saw anything that represented what we were so filled with color. Even though I'm Mexican American, and I've lived almost all my life in San Diego.
mhm,
Um, you go and you experience when you go to Mexico, and even in our city, a lot of color, texture.
mhm.
So you don't realize that that's not your normal. And
Right.
so, and for me, it was all about color, and it was all about the texture, and, our embroideries that, they have a feel to them. And so then when I started sewing, that's what I was looking for. Or quilting, I
Mhm,
started like, okay, I need to take a course in, patchwork. And I was pregnant with my third child, and I was like, okay, this is the time. I stopped working, and so I'm like, this is it. And that's how I started learning how to do patchwork and quilting. And it's funny because I always looked for bright colors, and it was very hard for me to find bright colors, but whenever I did, I was all about it. It was here, let me buy. I would find and put them together, and I would make what they would call very interesting quilts, right?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't the traditional, and I didn't know any better. I just knew that that was not my look that I wanted to see. I didn't know that it was, rules, and this is the way you should be doing it.
Sure.
For me, it was all about like beautiful patterns and that I've seen in our culture. Many of the motifs, a lot of geometric. So for me, it was like, oh, wait a minute. It's all I have to do. It's missing the color that I'm looking for. And so, but yes, that's how I started quilting. And so, on and off, I've been sewing and doing quilting. I also ran our own business, a construction company, for many years. So when we were doing that, I had very little time to quilt, but I always kept my sewing machine right next to my desk. And even if it was 10 minutes, because even 10 minutes, you have to understand, when you're in a different space and you're doing business, or any other job, you take 10 minutes to be creative. It changes your whole mindset, and it gives you a peace. So for me, even if I just did 10 minutes of sewing, it made a world of a difference. So this is why quilting is such a passion of mine, because I know how important it is to our soul when you create something and it changes the way you feel. It changes the outlook of a lot of things just with 10 minutes of sewing.
Mhm. Oh,
So yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Hmm.
Wow, that's incredible. And I love that because I'm a color girl too. Like I've always just everything I've always wanted even when I was a little girl, it's just like I want color, I want bright, I want
Hmm.
fun. And I'm still that way. Most of my quilts are pattern, print on print on print. I don't do a lot of solids or, you know, I'm more
Yes,
more
if you
likely
could
to
see.
yeah, yeah, I was gonna say that looks like something I would make because I'm like, oh, it has color, great. These colors go together. Let's
Yeah.
add more color. Oh, what's another
Yes.
color? And it's just so funny because that's like it just speaks to me because I'm like drawn to that. I want color on color on color. So I
Yeah.
love that aspect, especially of like, you know, Spanish culture, Spanish speaking culture is like
Right.
there's lots of that all throughout it. So whether you're from Colombia or Mexico,
Right.
like it's pervasive throughout. So I love that. I love seeing that because it just makes my heart so happy. But
Yeah.
um, that's so cool. And so, okay, so you guys at different times took the pattern writing course. You both were feeling that drawn to that need to create something that you could share with your family and friends back home and in your culture, not just your friends and family, but your culture. And, I've spoken with the Katie as well and Orlando. And it's like there's this whole there's this whole subculture within quilting that's like, but what about us? Like you're here and it's great and welcome and hopefully obviously you've got a strong community, but it's like but also how do we bring more people in, and if we can't reach you with your language, how are we even going to be able to do this? So I love that you guys were able to come together and say this is the best idea ever, let's make it happen.
Well, and
Absolutely.
one of the things is, uh, in theory, in theory, it's an amazing idea.
Yeah.
Execution wise, and to reality is going upstream, right? Is going against the traditional way, is going against um business is cold, and Laura and I always talk about this, right?
Hmm.
It's about making money, right?
Yeah.
And this is a brand new thing where we don't have exact metrics. We don't have this because it's a brand new idea. It's like, how can is it profitable enough for for everybody to continue and to believe in this idea? So we
Right.
have been blessed that uh, the industry, with its ups and its downs, is willing to open up their spaces to a brand new idea and to our intake and expand horizons in that way. Um, it's a blessing because when Laura and I talk about it, it's like we are getting the brunt of it all in a way, but we're just kind of making it easier for whoever comes behind us.
Right. Isn't that the goal of like humanity, is to say, okay, I
Yes.
know I had to do these hard things, but I also don't want anybody else to have to do it now that I know that there's a better way. So grateful to you guys for being willing to take that on, because yeah, it's like business is so cold and so feelingless sometimes. And that numbers game that you have to play with yourself and with the people involved, it feels heartless sometimes, but I'm so
I
glad
mean,
that
everybody's got to pay their bills, and we get it,
exactly.
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And and everybody comes into, and unfortunately, sometimes it comes into, it's more of like a very selfish thing. It's like, I'll take care of myself and
Mhm.
myself only.
Mhm.
Uh, and that's one thing that is a wonderful thing about this community, is that so many people do believe that raising the tide lifts all boats,
Yes.
kind of analogy. And that's a wonderful thing. And not in not many communities, that's the philosophy that we as quilters want to continue to bring, right?
Mhm.
And the majority of the community is in that mentality, which makes it such a wonderful place where everybody's willing to share their knowledge and to share their experiences and to say, hey, for me this is what worked, and for me this is what, and they're willing to share numbers and things that you don't think that people just give out, right? And so that's a wonderful thing, and so you get both sides of it, and that's just life, right?
Yeah.
But just being able to actually see and acknowledge the blessings that we have gone through this journey,
Mhm.
it's unlike any other area.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you say has been the biggest hurdle, or like the hardest kind of part of creating this book? Has it been, the translation of things? Has it been just, yeah, finding people who believe in the project, who want to support you? Or yeah, what has been the hardest thing you've had to face with this?
You want to take that one, Laura?
Yeah. I think for us is finding our community and letting them know, we're here.
Mhm.
We have this for you. And showing them that they can quilt, and it does, and they can read the instructions, because even, I've gotten messages of like, even though I'm not I wasn't born in the States, but I've been here long enough. I can read and I can talk and understand English, but it is hard when you're going to read a pattern in English, because even though they can read it, it's numbers, and it's a little bit more complicated, so
Mhm.
it's so much easier. And I didn't even realize that until a couple of people reached out and said, oh my gosh, this is so good. And she's like, and she's talking to me in English,
Mhm.
or emailing us in English. And so then I was like, oh, you know what, I didn't even realize that, because it's not just for only Spanish speakers. It's also for the people that, also can read and write, and been here long enough to know the language. But when you are dealing with a lot of cutting and all the instructions, your brain always, it always is thinking in Spanish when you're a Spanish speaker.
Right.
and you're translating everything to English.
Mhm.
Um, and that's how it usually is. And so then it makes it so much easier. And so it was also eye-opening for us to say, wow, here is something else that we didn't even know that was helping our community, to be able to get this book and be able to do quilting and be able to cut, and be confident that, oh, I am reading this right and this is how it is. So
Yeah.
yeah, that part of the whole book and our patterns being bilingual,
Mhm.
is so rewarding. And but yes, and going back to, what you, asked is, yes, finding the community and letting them know, that's our challenge. But we're getting the word out, and we're doing as much as we can. And yes, it's only been a short amount of time, but in the short amount of time, we've found some wonderful, wonderful people that, are so happy to be able to get our patterns. And we get emails
Yeah.
about, how happy they are that they can get the patterns in Spanish. So right there alone it's letting us know that we are doing what we wanted, what we were meant to do, and what our goals were, so
Yeah.
definitely, yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. And yeah, I think it's, have an idea and coming, I have a quilting business too and all that stuff. And it's like, okay, I have this thing. How do I tell people about it? How do I get
right.
people to know I'm here and this is what I do? And my podcast is part of that for me. Like I get to talk about my business through here, but also I get to talk to amazing quilters and learn so much also. Like it's kind of feels like a selfish endeavor almost sometimes, but then it's also like I get to then share that with lots of other people too. So hopefully this brings a whole
Yes.
new set of audience to you guys, like who know that, you have Spanish patterns out there that they can interact with and not have to fight the English. Cause you're right. Like, uh, now don't get me wrong, my Spanish is not good, but I have been learning off and on since high school. And I still, practice my little Duolingo every day. And, but it's like, even though there's certain things that's like, I can read it and I know what it means. If I go to say it, I'm like,
Right.
I freeze up a little because I have to think about, okay, what words do I say? What order? Am I using the right, you know, phrase for this context? And
And some things are backwards,
yeah,
right? And
right.
that trips you off. And so
Yeah. But
whereas
it's that like that translation, like Laura was saying, of like, I have to think about it in English and then I can move it into Spanish. And so I can only imagine, especially when Spanish is your native tongue, that's what
Right.
you were in the womb, in your, before you were born, that's what you were hearing. And your brain was processing as language. And then that's what you are born hearing. And that's the language that your brain is processing to then try to switch over. Even that, even when you're young, it's still a switch because you were formed with one language, right?
Mhm.
Your brain was formed around it, and now you're having to deal with switching to a different language. And English is hard.
Yeah,
So I can only imagine trying to learn how to quilt and sew in a different language because process language is so different. And
it is.
interpreting the meaning of certain terms, context is everything. And if you're not sure of the context or you're not sure that you don't understand that there's a switch in context with certain words, then yeah, it's like an uphill battle. So
Yeah,
that's
and it's funny because even while we so Laura and I, when we're making sure that the Spanish translation is as neutral as possible, right? There's certain words of that are okay in Mexico, but in Colombia we don't really use them. And so we
mm,
like go back and forth and like trying to find that terminology that is the most universal for everybody,
right.
regardless of nationality, that can actually understand the pattern when they're reading it. And so
Yeah.
that's another challenge on its own. And that's a challenge in many languages, right? Even the English, because you can't compare the English of Australia or the British English to the American English, right? There's certain
Right.
words that kind of mean something different. And
Hmm.
trying to find a universal word that just doesn't have that dual meaning. And on that is like, Lord, I have so many stories of And that's one of the wonderful things about being in the US, right? Being such a culturally diverse country. That's something that I never experienced in my country. And I always talk to Laura about it. You
Mhm.
know, immigration is not a thing in my country. I mean, it's a third world country, you know. And it was only until the Venezuela crisis that when that happened, but I wasn't in the I was here in the US when this started to unravel. So in during my 18, almost 19 years in Colombia, I never experienced that immigration of or had contact with any other culture. I did travel a lot within the country, and
Mhm.
we went a lot to Miami for vacation, and we went to Disney World and all that stuff. And um, but it was like just section. It's different when you go on vacation, and I mean you do get exposure and you understand a lot of things. But once moving to the country, and you get exposed to so many different nationalities, especially working in the company that I worked for so many years, and it was a Hispanic driven company.
Mhm.
um, and then I work with people from all different countries, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, you name it, Spain. I mean, everybody that spoke Spanish, any nationality, worked at the company that I worked for almost 12 years. So it was like, and it's different because like we talk and we say certain words and we just laugh about it
Mhm.
because it's like, what did you mean? Is this no, no, don't say that word. And it's like, well, for me, that doesn't mean. And so we will revert to English and then we'll laugh about it.
Mhm.
Because it's like, oh, that is interesting. And so then every time we say, oh, how did you say strawberries in Spanish, right? Because
Mhm.
strawberries in your country mean can have a different word to whatever I name them in Colombia. So it's like so funny that we will say the word in English to make sure that it was like the neutral
Yeah.
word for us, and so that we can all come together and learn. And it's fascinating. Languages is a fascinating thing
Yeah.
to do, but we're just blessed to be in this journey, like truly, like Laura and I know that yes, we want the business to grow, and we're beginning and all of it, but at the end of the day we do it for the love of it, because if it wasn't for that
Mhm.
we would have gave up a long time ago.
Right.
And so we're clear that beyond the business, this is also our passion, and we're doing it for a cause that's greater than us. And so when you have that cleared in your head, it just means that decision making, it makes it that Laura and I are always in the same page because we both understand. So if there's any compromise on or Latino roots per se, Laura and
Mhm.
I are always on the same, you know,
Yeah.
level of understanding, and we're like, no, we both feel very strongly about the same things, and that's why it makes this partnership so easy to deal with. And we are so blessed because creating a business with another person, we always say it's difficult and we hear like horror stories, but for Laura and I don't think it hasn't been that at all from day one. And so it's just kind of a little crazy to like really say that about that amazing journey that Laura and I have been in, and just talk about it, and we do reflect on it, and we feel really blessed by it because it's not an easy thing to do.
Oh, and you're
And
right. Oh, go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, and I think also what makes this work is that we are very driven. We're both work really hard, and we have that, and we laugh. And this is why, you know, she's my little bee and I'm her mama bee, because we're always on, we're always working. We always have tons of ideas, and we get it and we get things done, like let's work on this. And so I think that is also a big part of why this works, because we both put 120% all the time. And of course, we're going to have, bad days, and it's fine. Take it all, but
Right.
most of the time, we're both, even if we're not feeling well, we're like, oh, but what about this and this? And I got this done. And so we're both very driven. And
Yeah.
so I think this is why definitely it also works, because, if it wasn't on both of us, if there was one that was, more relaxed and just, oh, okay, I'll get to it when I get to it, and it would not definitely not work. But we both are very much like doers and get it done girls. So that's, I think this is why it also is a perfect match for us. And who knew when she interviewed me that, we would have so many things in common.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. And I was gonna say, I can imagine that as a partnership because you both have such strong backgrounds in running business or, just business knowledge. It does take a certain kind of personality to be able to push through and persevere through the hardships because it's not easy. People think, oh, I'll just start my own business. It's like, okay, well, here's 1,000 things you have to do just to even start. And then when you start, here's 1,000 more things that you have to always stay on top of. And yeah, if your partner isn't as driven as you, it can be hard. You can feel like you're dragging kind of the other person. And so for you guys to be able to rely on each other's work ethic and to be able to relax into that knowledge that you're both going to carry the weight is, I can imagine, just a dream because, you
Yeah.
think going into business with somebody, they might seem excited at first. And my husband and I have kind of experienced it because we've had multiple businesses and people say like, oh yeah, I want to do that, I want to do that. And then when push comes to shove, they just don't show up. And it's like, well, I guess we're doing this by ourselves now, kind of thing. So it's really nice when you find somebody who can actually help carry the, like you said, a rising tide lifts all boats. So if you're both working to lift those boats together and to improve your business together and feel like you're on the same wavelength, that's such a gift.
Right. And
Yes. And I think that's,
honesty and transparency is key as well in
Yes.
any sort of business and in any sort of relationship, whether
Yes.
it's with your friends, whether it's with your partner, and whether it's with your business partner or your kids.
Mhm.
That's kind, and Laura and I do share that. That is, we lead by example in that sense. So, so many different foundational values that you have as a person are so necessary for the success of anything, of any good relationship. And I feel that Laura and I treat our relationship more of that, more of a family relationship, and the business just kind of is a secondary thing that we do. And so, but for us, it's more important to be connected and to have that wonderful relationship and feel that we both support each other regardless of the situation. And that's I feel that that's so important when you're looking at a business relationship in that way, that the person comes first. And
Mhm.
when that is the case, everything else just comes much easier. And it doesn't mean that we haven't had bumps. We both have had bumps, and
Mhm.
um, we have made mistakes. In the Great Wisconsin Quilt Show where Laura was teaching, I I had a family conflict. I had to go on vacation because it was a whole thing. I completely forgot those were the dates. And then we put the order of the fabric wrong and then we're like scrambling.
Oh no.
But even through all of that, there was never a negative thing of like, or a negative discussion. It was more of like, we just learned from it. Like,
Mhm.
I made a mistake. I didn't put it in the order. And then we had to scramble for fabric. And at the end, but everything worked out. If that would have been of pointed fingers at each other, that would have never worked.
Mhm.
yeah. And I think that's the key here. It's like, we're not pointing fingers. We just like, okay, well, we need this. Okay, we figure it out. This is what we're doing. And we're bringing solution to whatever the problem is. And that's all that needs to be done. We only need a solution to whatever mistakes. We're all going to make mistakes and we're all going to not do things right. It's what you do with that. Because then if you, like Lina says, if you're pointing fingers or this and that, it doesn't work. And we don't need that. We're very like positive and we're like always like, okay, that's okay. I could have made the mistake. Both of us make mistakes, and we're both on that level where we're like, okay, well, what do we do about it? Let's figure it out. Let's get this fabric. Okay, I can get this. I have this fabric, and it worked out beautifully. And so if we do it that way, I think it also allows us to be okay to be able to say, oh, you know what, I made a mistake. I did this, and we know that Lina, at least for me, Lina is going to be okay. Don't worry. What do we do?
Yeah.
And I'm the same with her. I'm like, okay, let's just resolve it versus making it more complicated versus making it bigger, which then there's no purpose for that. And we don't have time for that. And we're both not like that. So we just get over it really quickly. We have a solution and we move on. And so I think that's very important in any business and especially ours. And, she's in Wisconsin, I'm in San Diego. So, it's not that easy either because whatever we have to do, we have to be on the phone, we have to be on Zoom, we have whatever we need to do. And, yes, thankfully technology is so good, but it's so much better when you're in person where you can really see and hear this and, but so far, we've made it work. We've made, and this is how we deal with this. And, and I think this is why we both feel very blessed that we, have this great partnership. And, every day we talk about how blessed we feel because we are on this journey together that meant so much to us, and our relationship and how it's bloomed and how we, like Lina said, we have many of the same values and goals. And so I think everything as a whole, plus, the industry has received us so well as well. So all together, every day we are very thankful and we know and we're grateful and we feel blessed every single day to be on this journey together. And, and we know we're doing a lot more things, but right now, just even this book for us has, filled our hearts and our souls because was one of our biggest dreams for us separately and then together to be able to come and have, the quilting patterns and the quilting world in Spanish.
Yeah.
Being able to execute that dream is not something that everybody gets to say, I did it.
Mhm.
And in the short amount of time that we did it, right? So we kind of started backwards. We had an idea, and normally in industry or the normal standards of what we hear, right? Because I'm very brand new. I mean, compared to other people, like I always say, I'm a beginner quilter. And Laura's like, no. You at the beginning she was like, okay, she let it slide for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And then she was like, after a few months, she was like,
no more.
No, at the trash with that. You're never a beginner quilter. Because we will talk of things. I was like, well, I haven't done this really much. And so I just dipped my toes into it. And I'm always, I don't know, like self-conscious in regards of like, I don't want to be like this self-centered person of like, oh, I can do no, but I enjoy it and it comes so naturally to me. And so I feel that you have God-given talents and that you for some reason something just click in your head and then it just comes easily. So somebody teaches you something quickly and then you make it your own and you just make it grow. But like I'm really bad at social media. So like I tell Laura, like when we first started, I say, Laura, social media is not a thing for me, right?
Yeah.
So Laura is in charge of the social media, but I'm really good at emailing, reaching out, and getting opportunities, reaching out to you. That's why you heard from me and not from Laura, right? Because I in that sense I have no fear. I always tell ours, what's the worst things that they can tell us is a no, right?
Mhm.
So I'm not afraid of reaching out. I'm not afraid of emailing. I'm not afraid of making proposals, but I'm also not afraid of the work, of when that opportunity gets to me, of
Mm.
execution, right? And
Mhm.
so one thing is to talk the talk, and another thing is to actually do the things that you said you were going to talk about, right?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so the execution part of it is come together. And when you're able to do both, it's a wonderful thing. But another thing it's important is that if you don't talk about what you bring into the world, nobody's going to find you. You can
Right.
be the most talented person at doing something, regardless of whatever profession it is. A carpenter, an electrician, a plumber. I'm talking about any sort of skill. We're talking about
Mhm.
quilting because this is what we love to do, but
Yeah.
it applies to any sort of career or task or construction, remodeling, you name it.
Mhm.
If you're not out there telling you and selling your services, you can be the best at it. Nobody's going to find you, right? And so
Mhm.
I do have that very clear in my head, but I'm not just good at it. I can understand it and I understand the logic and the principle of it, but I am I hate taking pictures because I feel that I'm not good at it. I I just don't. So and Laura does such a wonderful job executing pictures and putting the backgrounds and dressing it up. And I'm like, I don't have that kind of creative figuring it out and the light and we put it here. I just feel it's so cumbersome for me. It doesn't fill me up, right?
Mhm.
That's not something that fills my cup.
Mhm.
Is it a necessary part of a business? Of course it is. Marketing is everything in a business. You can
Yeah.
have a crappy product, but you have excellent marketing, you're still gonna stay afloat
Mhm.
because of your excellent marketing. So I'm
Yeah.
not blinded to that part of it.
Yeah.
And that's why I always tell Laura, like, and so being very sincere with yourself about what I'm good at and what I'm not really good at, but I understand the need of it,
Mhm.
I think is key. And so Laura and I balance each other so much. Plus, we're in different seasons of our lives as well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I'm in a version that of myself that she already went through. So
Mhm.
her wisdom and the knowledge that she comes from is invaluable to me, right?
Yeah.
And same around, like I for Laura, like she still has so much to learn, and she's like, like she listens to me and she's open to listen to my ideas and to say, Lina, what do we do here? And Lina,
Mhm.
what do you think about this? Right? And
Mhm.
so always bouncing off ideas of each other and knowing our weaknesses and strengths. It's something that she sees, we see the value on each other, and we know that we are here because of us. We wouldn't be here because without the other, right? And so
Individually, yeah.
that's a wonderful thing where I'm constantly telling her thank you. Like we thank each other like a million times at this point because we are so grateful of all her support and all her work. So we don't dismiss that, and that's really important
Yeah.
for our
Yeah.
relationship. It's like for you to appreciate your partner, right? Like it's the
Mhm.
same thing, right? You really have to communicate that uh to the person, because sometimes you think we all have different. I guess I don't know if you guys read the book of the 5 different love languages that every human kind of has. And so everybody kind of communicates their love in a different way, but being acknowledged or know exactly how the other person receives feedback, it goes a
Mhm.
long way. And if the same goes in that work relationship, you need to understand what actually works with the person that you're working with, right? Of how
Mhm.
they receive the appreciation that you do see what they do for you and for the business that we're trying to build.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's important to know deeply the person that you're working with and to know their styles and you know, you may have very similar ideas and very similar wants for something, but how you get there might look different. And the fact that you guys can balance each other out is so nice. And having that isn't so important because it's like you can recognize like I think sometimes you can get into business situations where you know you find yourself thinking, oh, without this person I could do XYZ, or this person's holding me back, and then you know try to go it alone and then realize like, oh my gosh, it's so much harder without another person. But ultimately, if the other person isn't contributing, isn't helping you push the business or push your ideas the way you want it to go, that can still also be more important to kind of go on your own than to stick with a bad partnership. But I liked what you said
Definitely.
about being, upfront and honest and transparent, because I think so many people skip that. They especially it's funny, like Wisconsin, like that kind of Midwest nice of like, you don't really talk about how you feel, you don't really call people out, you don't really say what you think. And it's the same, like, I think it's just white people, but like we just hide a lot, like, oh no, everything's fine. I'm a nice person. I don't have any arguments, but like, and that's kind of how I was raised and grew up. And then my husband, when I met him, he was like, I don't do fake. Like, I don't do like we have to like honesty has to be like the very top, like the strongest pillar in our relationship if we're going to do this. And I was like, what do you mean? He was the first person to just be straight up honest with me about how he was feeling, what he was thinking, to give me space to be honest about my feelings and what I was thinking, and not, quote unquote, punish me for it. And so having that in a partnership, whether it's a romantic relationship, your spouse or whatever, but in business too, like that's why we've been able to have multiple businesses, because I can say, I don't think this is going to work. And he can be like, well, here's why I think it will. And I can be like, well, great. But that puts all the work on me, and I don't want to do that. And he can go, oh, okay, I see how you could see that. It's really valuable. So I love that that is a tenet for you guys, because I think ultimately being realistic with who you are and who the other person is, and being realistic about how to approach things, but also that problem solving mindset of, okay, we either one of us could have easily made that same exact mistake, but what do we do to fix it? Versus like, well, if you would have just done this, and if I would never make that mistake, which is so untrue. But I appreciate that about you guys, because I think that that is so important, and to be able to talk about it and share the that concept with people, I think is so valuable. Like, no, this is actually so important to be honest and to be open and share these things, because you know things looking one way and then being another way is how I think businesses fail, how people lose trust in the community. Because I mean, I've had instances where I thought somebody was a certain way, and then I interacted with them in person or saw them interact with somebody in a way that I was like, oh no, like it made me question my my relationship to them, because they were being different, right? So I think I like to pride myself in being the person that, I if you met me in person, I'd be the same exact way. Like, you wouldn't meet a different version of me, because I don't present a different version of me. This is who I am. And, regardless of some feedback that I don't like, I'd rather be my full self than say, no, I was just pretending. Because that's hard. It's
And
exhausting.
yeah, and I
Oh,
think and I can relate to you, especially when you're doing a podcast,
Hmm.
because how can you continue something if you're not your true self, right? And the same for us, for Lara and I, is the same thing
Hmm.
because we're on video, because you have to talk to people.
Hmm.
And I find it terrifying. It's like, how can people have like double lives? Like,
I
isn't
don't
that
know.
exhausting?
I think so. It's like, I can only imagine how terrible that would be because I can't even pretend to try to like not live in my full truth and who I am. And
And that doesn't mean that you cannot evolve,
right,
right?
right.
And I said, just because I'm being truthful to myself doesn't mean that feedback or things that's like, oh yeah, I could
Mhm.
be better at this, right? Or I
Yeah.
could be better at that, or I could
Mhm.
improve this, or I could improve that, right? Um,
Right.
it's just the way. Just because we want to stay true to ourselves doesn't mean that we can evolve, and that's the beauty of a human that is able to change and continue to better themselves. It doesn't it regardless of the age. You can
Yeah.
be 100 years old and still have the ability to be better and to become a better person, right?
Right.
And that's what made the humans so complex and in a such a wonderful way.
Mhm.
And I want to say that recognizing that is so important. So when you recognize it, and that goes between Lena and I, we recognize it and then we're like, oh, you know what? You could do this here, or I could do this here better. And how we receive it versus being feeling criticized. No, it's
Mhm.
coming out of love, and we both are like, oh, you know what, maybe try this here, the and so that
Right.
is also very important, because it's recognizing, oh yeah, you know what, I may need more help in this area. I didn't realize that I might need, and I wasn't doing it the right way. Or you know what, if you change this, or you know
Right.
recognizing, even with our personalities, you know what, hey, we should say it this way versus saying it that way. And both of us being very accepting and not taking it in a wrong, it could be taken it in a wrong way, but more than anything is seeing it how the other person is seeing it, and then saying, oh yeah, you know what, you're right, maybe I shouldn't say it that way. I didn't mean that way to, and then
Yeah.
you realize, oh yeah, that does sound harsh. But sometimes, and that's how we both learn so much, and we're both open. And this is why the relationship is so much better, for both of us, because we both feel the same way. We try not to take anything personal. We're both always trying to better ourselves. We're always learning. There's no such thing as like, I know everything. No, we both are very open. I'm like, oh, you know what? Maybe do it this way. And, oh, well, why don't you show me? I don't know how to do that. I'm
Mhm.
older, so technology, yes, I do. I get by. Yes. But Lena is like, woo, 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 right away. And I'm like, wait a minute, how did you do that? And okay, you need to show me, because I know that I learned, but it's taken me a little while. So yeah. so, so definitely, I think that, recognizing that and being accepting is
Yeah.
huge in
Yeah.
anything, because
Mhm.
that allows you to grow. So a lot of
Absolutely.
people, if you're not accepting of like, oh, what, and you're very set in your ways, you don't grow.
Mhm.
And so, both of us, we love that. We love growing. We love learning. We love like, figuring things out. I'm like, how do we do? Well, let's figure out, let's research. And, so
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, this is what life is about, in the journey that we're on. It's about like, being on that journey together, and both of us trying to be on exactly the same, you know, journey and level of like, okay, you do this. And we always say divide and conquer, or what is it, conquer and divide. um, and so yeah, because it's the only way to do things for
Yeah.
us. And so,
Yeah.
um, she uplifts me when I'm like, oh, doubting, and I uplift her when she's in doubt. So it that's what's beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, I
Yeah,
love that so much. That's so special. And I'm so glad you guys have each other because it can be hard. It can be hard to embark on an idea or try to bring something about when you feel by yourself. But when you've got
right.
at least one other person to say, no, keep going and like I'll help you, it it makes a huge difference. So I'm glad you
Mhm.
have that. So let's talk about the book. It's called Learn to Quilt Bilingual Guide Book. So it's in both English and in Spanish.
Yes.
Okay, so guide of learning how to quilt. Do you find that or has anybody given you feedback on having both in English and Spanish in there that it makes it easier to kind of find the consensus of the meaning of certain terms? Because we kind of talked about that, like finding the right language for expressing the way to do things, the process of quilting. But is it, do you think the like kind of merging of the two or having them both there you know, has that been struggle for people, or have they found that more beneficial?
I think the biggest feedback that we have had is more of like, even people that are just learning Spanish are getting the book because they see it, that are able to just compare and see, okay, this word means this word means that. So it's a side by side um, of the way of the book is displayed, where it makes it really easy. Like if you just want to concentrate in the English part, you can completely ignore the Spanish part. And that's the
Mm,
beauty of how our layout is that you can go through our patterns, you can go through the book or to our content, where if you don't know the language, you can just continue and get to the end of the project. But if
mhm,
you are a Spanish speaking person, the same, you just ignore the other side of
mhm,
of the. And so it's laid out so beautifully, and that's one of the attractions that people like open the book and say, oh wow, like there's no expectation of that, but when people see it, it's like, oh, this is good. It's a beautiful book. Like, wow, this is a neat idea on how well the layout works, right? Is it's
yeah,
not, one is not competing with the other, which that could be the fear. And that was the publisher's fear in a way. It was like, we love the idea, but how do we accomplish that, right?
yeah,
And so that has been something that is beautiful because it makes it accessible to both of our communities. We are aware that, yes, we are Latinas, but we live in this country, right?
mhm,
And what we make, we might think is simple or beautiful, but it's unique because we're
mhm,
making it colorful, we're making it, and so we're making it accessible. And that's one of the things that people do truly give us feedback about. And it's like, I love the inclusivity of it. I love that you guys both, yes, it is a lot more work because you're actually buying two patterns in one,
mhm,
right? If you look at
yeah,
it that way. Um, but being able to join them, and that's our goal. We want to join, we want through inclusivity into it.
mhm,
And this is what the quilting community is all about, right?
yeah,
Being inclusive and being supportive and being thin is just like, yeah, let's just open it up and we can both coexist at the same time.
mhm,
You may not think it works, but it does work. You can coexist at the same time.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, and then I saw that you were translating one of the Moda patterns into Spanish. And is that something that you're going to continue to work on with them, or and do you have other companies coming to you for translations?
I let you talk, Laura.
Yeah. So yes, so that is so exciting for us. And also we feel so grateful and blessed that we got the opportunity. Um, we're translating the Riley Blake 2025 Block Challenge, and we're doing the Moda Blockhead 6 also. So both of those sew-alongs we've translated into Spanish, and it's the very first time that they've had their patterns translated. So Lina does the Moda blockheads. We divided, so in order to be able to do all the tutorials, and so I do the Riley Blake and Lina does the Moda blockheads, and
Okay.
we're doing Spanish tutorials on YouTube. Step by step, and they can download the Spanish instructions, and so yeah, so we're very proud of that because it's for us, that's been our goal, that
Yeah.
everybody could have, some of their patterns accessible in Spanish for our community. So
Yeah.
it's been very exciting to be able to do that. Um and we started our channel, so you know how that is beginning, and you know uh we're just baby channel right now, what I call it. And but all our content surely will be on there slowly, but we're getting to it, and we're hoping to fill it with all the basics and all of the patterns and all the tutorials, everything, all content in Spanish. We have a little bit of English for the book, some of the patterns that we will be doing in English, but the majority of our content is in Spanish.
Spanish. Okay.
Yeah.
So our patterns are bilingual, but we do want to concentrate the channel to be Spanish because so much is out there already in English, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
so little in our language, which is not to take away that. And we also have the We Also blog, the Bernina, and there's a We Also in Spanish. That is a collaboration between us, and our gallery fabrics will also be adding some content in there too. So being able that they opened up the very first wheel sewing Spanish patterns is just amazing. I mean, it's like being the first of so many things is so truly exciting, but that comes with a huge responsibility and kind of pressure that we want to do it right? Like this is it's a one in a lifetime opportunity for us, and not everybody gets to say you wrote a book. Not everybody gets to say we're working with Moda and Riley Blake. That's
Mhm.
and that's nothing that it comes that easy, and we're just beyond blessed. But I know that also comes from the hard work that we put in too, and that we, as I said earlier, the execution of those opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, that's incredible and so exciting that, you're getting more and more recognized and being brought in by these companies who, are huge in the industry and have a huge reach. And so the more that they can point people to you guys and to what you're doing, the more we can bring more people together. Cause I'm with you. The more the merrier, the bigger we can grow this community and bring, you know, our own traditions, our own kind of perspectives and our own culture into it, the better it's going to be, because then it can represent more than just Americans. It can, white Americans. It can represent more than just, one small culture when there's, tons
And
and
art
tons
is
out there.
only one,
Yeah.
right? It
Yeah.
doesn't art. It doesn't care who makes it.
No, exactly.
It doesn't.
No.
It's just something that you just do because
Right.
you love doing it, regardless of where you come from or what language you speak.
Right.
And so these beautiful art should be available in all the different languages in the world,
Yeah.
and it should be this global community of where we all doing this beautiful art. And
Mhm.
that's how Laura and I think it, right? We go even beyond of what is our community. We see quilting as this beautiful textile art that can just grow anywhere. And it doesn't have to have a stop of being just in English or
Right.
just in certain language.
Right.
It's gotta be accessible to all of us.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That accessibility is so important. And I'm so happy that you guys are making quilting even more accessible, because again, the more the merrier, the more people we can bring into this and teach them skills, the better off our world will be. Because I think, you know, having such an important creative hobby is so helpful and can get us through tough times. It can be therapeutic. It can be, meditative. And for a lot of us, that is so important. So I thank you for the work you're doing and for your tenacity and leaning in and not running away from this hard, the hard things of, facing it, making a business, especially being halfway across the country from each other and different time zones and you
Oh,
know,
yes. I try
that's
not to text her too much super early in the morning, but
Mhm.
she always gets messages at 6 or sometimes 5 in the morning because for me it's already 7. So I
Yeah.
already worked out, did this, did that. So by the time
Mhm.
I text her, I say, Good morning, mommy. I already done this and that and that, put the kids to
Yeah,
school. And it's like, I'm just drinking my coffee.
I know. Yeah. It's so funny. That's so funny. I
So
know.
I always have to keep that. So now I California time became my second time, and so I always translate. Okay, so I'm Laura's 2 hours behind.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
can always be tricky too, because 2 hours is a good break, right?
Hmm.
So for me it's 8 and for her it's 6. So there's
Right.
Hmm.
there's a different in time. So but we make it work. We just make it work, and I
Yeah.
always make sure that I keep her time frame. And that's the thing, is that we're so considerate of each other. So like I know that I'm not putting things super early in the morning, because 8 o'clock works great for me, but that means that Laura has to wake up like super, super early. So that's not, that's
Yeah.
doesn't work. So always keeping that in the back of my head is always good. And
Yeah.
I say me because I'm the one that's always coordinating the meetings and doing a lot of the behind the scene things and coordination. So I go
Okay.
and keeping that. And
Yeah.
Laura does a lot more of the social media front end creative things. We both create, but
Mhm.
I digitize things more. We do a lot of applique work. So
Mhm.
uh the Adobe Illustrator work and that kind of thing, I do a lot. And I always send it to her. She proofs it and she said, okay, we gotta change here, change that. So it's a collaborative work of like
Yeah.
I we really couldn't do it without the other, to be honest. And like it wouldn't
Yeah.
work. Like for us as quilting with Latinas is us. Is
Mhm.
there's not a break on that.
Yeah. It's not one Latina, it's Latinas.
Yes.
Yeah. Has to be more of you. Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah. And even us scheduling, it's like I'm in between you guys. So, it was funny. It's like, okay, well, I'm in Central and she's in Pacific. And I was like, well, I'm in Mountain. And it's like, okay, we got to find a time that works for all three of us. And yeah, like I have a, quilty group chat and two of them are in Eastern time. I'm in Mountain time and one of us is in Pacific time. So it's like I get texts at 7 in the morning and I'm thinking, oh gosh, for our California friend, she's at 6 a.m. So she doesn't even respond until we're all kind of well into our day. And it's just so funny because yeah, it's like you don't even think about it. They're texting when they're already at work and they've been up for a couple hours and I'm just waking up. And it is funny, but it is nice to have that like you can I'm going to send this message and I know they'll get it when they wake up or I know that it's late, super late for them, but they'll see it in the morning kind of thing. And just kind of knowing that is kind of nice, but it's also funny. Like, how do we, it's just wild, like what technology can do for us. Cause it's like, it
Yeah,
was,
and it's beautiful because technology just always does that, and
yeah.
it's that's the benefits. And always I always tell Laura, it's like when it comes, one thing that's always constant in life is change.
Absolutely. Yep.
That
And
doesn't mean that you don't struggle with it, but at
no,
least recognizing is half the battle.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Change is a little rough over here, but it has to happen. And the more you can kind of deal with it and face it and try to understand what that change is going to mean for you, the easier it can kind of be to move through it and just accept what comes because a lot of it you can't even control. So it's just okay, whatever happens, I guess. Like I'm willing to see how this shakes out. So
Definitely. And that's how life is. And
yep,
it's what you do with what you get,
yep,
that is the secret.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show today, ladies. I've really appreciated hearing from you and learning about your process and everything you're doing. And I can't wait to share it, to let other people hear about it. But I do want to ask because I try to ask my guests if you have a tip or a piece of advice for the listeners. So, Lena, we can start with you. Do you have something that you just live by that helps you with your quilting or just in life in general?
um I guess with my quilting it's more of like, don't be afraid. It's for you to be joyful. That's the wonderful thing about quilting. Don't be
Hmm.
afraid to try things, and don't just lean into whatever speaks to your heart. If some project isn't speaking to you, don't feel guilty about stopping it. Just stop
Yeah.
it. No, we're not doctors, man. I know many people say it. We're not performing surgery, life-saving surgery to somebody here.
Yeah.
We are making our hearts and our brains happy to live a better quality of life. And not
Mhm.
everybody has that opportunity to encounter that and to have that therapeutic portion of the quilting in their lives.
Mhm.
And as as a breast cancer survivor and as a person that lives with multiple sclerosis, I
Mhm.
can tell you how important that is in a human being. And I literally always say that quilting literally stitched me back together through
Mhm.
so many different things and through many different challenges in my life. And not being afraid of trying something new and if it doesn't work, just let it go and don't feel guilty about it. I mean, if
Right.
it's a work deadline or something that it is, yes, you gotta get that done.
Right.
If
Right.
you're doing something that's a project that you wanna get done and is joyful, move on and don't feel guilty about it. Don't We have so much baggage already, heavy things that we have to carry in life. You don't need to put that in that baggage. It's not worth it. Just
Yeah.
be happy about it, and if you don't, just gift it. We have so many different ways that we can donate our resources, and the people that will be happier to receive the things that you just don't love anymore, and
Yeah.
just don't have that guilt. There's no necessity
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Thank you so much. And wow, you're living with a lot. I didn't even realize. So I'm glad you're still here with us.
Yeah.
And for you, Laura, what do you
For me
have for
is
us?
uh, out of our busy days as moms, as working and trying to balance everything out, take 10 minutes of sewing.
Mm.
You don't have to dedicate yourself to a whole project. You don't even have to create a project in those 10 minutes. You could just sew two pieces of fabric together, and mindless sewing is like meditation, and it goes a long way. It really helps you with your day, with your everyday. So try it. 10 minutes a day, even in the midst of chaos, in the midst of whatever is going in your life. If you just take that 10 minutes and be still and just sew and see how it'll change your day.
Yeah. Yeah, I love
Hmm.
that. And it's like you were saying, you kept your sewing machine close to your desk to just give you that
Yeah.
break and like kind of changing, if you're stuck in a problem at work or something's frustrating, just like changing your mindset completely to focusing on just like making something or, just letting something happen. Cause it's like we can all slap some fabric together. We can all press the presser
Yeah.
foot or, the pedal and let something sew. And it does, it like kind of clears everything out. And then you can walk away from it and go, okay, I'm ready to tackle this next thing. So I love that so
Yes.
much. And
Thank you.
as like a multi hobbyist, sometimes I get sick of sewing, so I have to go to something else. So now it's like I have 5 like crochet projects or, other sewing projects I want to try. So it's like I've always got something I can go to when I get sick of whatever that one thing is.
I'm very much the same way. Like I always have a drawing pad. I'm always either drawing and painting, and then it's hard because you can't mix paint and fabric because they don't go together in the same space. So
Mhm.
I'm always have to be going into a different space. But absolutely, sometimes you don't want to sew. Sometimes your mind is wanting to do something different, and if you just pick it up and yeah, because life is busy and life
Mhm.
you don't always have time, but if you pick up your pencil, your paint, or your needle to do a little bit of embroidery, 10
Mhm.
minutes,
Yeah.
it's a world of a difference in your life.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And you'll be surprised how much you can get done in that 10 minutes. Sometimes I think I don't have time for that. And I'm like, nope, I have 20 minutes. I'm going to set my timer and I'm just going to get as far as I can. And I'm always so shocked. I'm like, oh, dang.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
always think things take longer than they do. And sometimes they do, but I at least can make some progress. And I go, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize. So I love that advice and, just giving yourself permission to just take a
Yes.
break and do the thing that you love to do and make sure it's there for you when you when you need it. And I think the more we kind of make room for those kinds of things in our lives, and it helps us build our skills, and it'll be there for us,
Mhm.
when we eventually retire or we switch modes of other things in our lives. It's like we've always got that thing. And because you're continually building your relationship with it, by incorporating it into your life in those little 10-minute increments,
Yeah.
it can be more lasting than a lot of other things. So, well, I appreciate you guys so much, and we'll put links to all your social media, your YouTube. We'll link the book in the show notes so that people can get to it. It's Learn to Quilt Bilingual Guidebook by Raquel Duran and Lina Owen. And we've got Quilting with Latinas is your kind of Instagram, your what you come to it with. And so we'll put that in there as well. And thanks again, and we'll stay in touch.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much.